Welcome back to the stately virtual university here, the Apartment Academy, the multifamily industry's only operations-focused podcast and your institute of higher NOI. I'm your host, the Dean of the Apartment Academy, Daniel Cunningham, and today's guest lecturer is Tina Smothers. Tina is the owner of Integrated Asset Management, also the founder of a company called Advisory Solutions, where she's providing sort of fractional COO, director of operations sort of advice to multifamily operators. And Tina and I today had a sort of a rolling discussion just really about how difficult it is to be in property management, the challenges of the industry, maybe more specifically about people. And at the end, Tina shares some of her secrets for really what it takes to kind of survive and navigate all of the roles and responsibilities and liabilities of operating multifamily communities. And I think if you're on the operations side in the field, you will relate to everything that Tina has to talk about today. Here she is. Professor Smothers, welcome to the virtual Ivy covered campus here at the Apartment Academy. It's great to have you.
I'm so excited to be here. May I call you Dean Cunningham?
I would be honored. Yes, thank you. It's my honorific title here on campus. So yeah, please feel free. I have known you, Tina, in a bunch of roles over the years that we've known each other. I've known you as a developer, as a owner of a property management company, asset manager. Like, you've worn a lot of hats, and now you're offering sort of fractional COO, operational services. But tell us a little bit about how you started in this industry. Like, what brought you to this point?
I've got like the typical story, property management story. So I'm from actually a small town, Iowa, and moved to Des Moines to go to college and found a job doing part-time leasing. Say that I'm forever fortunate, because the first job I got doing leasing for $5.25 an hour introduced me to what would be the mentor of my career. You know, she really set me up for this amazing path. And as I moved through all the trenches of being a leasing agent and an on-site manager and a regional manager by the time I was 25, I really just saw different, angles of, it was the time where we were starting to do rehabs and billing, and just got an up on the rental industry in that facet. And then eventually decided I wanted to start my own property management company and got my broker's license. And then the rest is history. Here we are.
Yes, and now through Advisory Solutions, you are bringing this wisdom to other operators out there. Here's what always struck me about you when I first met you. You were running a management company there in Iowa, which we would say was, an SMB, classic kind of SMB, right? It reminded me somewhere around 5,000 units, somewhere in that range.
We onboarded 500 units within 5 years. So it was good growth spurt.
Yeah. And in the toughest range in sort of number of assets under management, that's the toughest. Like 5,000 and under, it's like you and then your team out in the field. And so in that sort of executive role, you really had to have your fingers in all the pies. So normally somebody that has your title, they don't really always have a grasp of technically what needs to be done, operationally what needs to be done, legally what needs to be done. And yet you were proficient of all those things because you were juggling all those balls. And so that was what struck me early on about you. It was sort of like this very complete grasp you had of the entire arc of really what it takes to operate a management company. And so what I thought would be interesting today would be to talk about, kind of the underbelly of, like we never really get into kind of the difficult things that make property management so hard. And so I thought we'd just kind of like take the gloves off today and talk about the hard stuff. Like, why is property management difficult? Why are so many people bad at it? Why does it have such a bad reputation? why is it not as profitable as it should be? Like any of these sorts of things. But for people that are thinking about this as a profession, as a career, you have been at every stage along the way. You've done almost everything. I don't know if you ever turned a wrench. I didn't hear maintenance service tech in there, but I'd be surprised if you didn't turn a wrench once in a while. So I don't know. I'll open up that way, Tina. What is so hard about this business?
I think so. This is my 27th year in property management, and I am a real estate investor as well, and have done some development. And I think it's people. People are your best asset and could be your worst asset, depending on what opportunities there are. Who have you got on your team? What are you doing for company culture? Every day now you hear probably 10 times a day work life balance and what that means, and how do you find that the in between to really appease to everybody. And I know yesterday I was talking to somebody, and it was a Gen Z, and she said, where I'm interning, I love they do coffee every morning for a half hour. And while I think that that's amazing, and I think it's a great idea, I would love to do it, but you've always got certain people in that scenario who they don't want to take a half hour. They want to start doing their work, they want to get their work done, and they want to go home. Some people don't want to talk to everybody at work, have small talk. And so how do you find that happy medium? And I think that people in our positions, whether you're leasing all the way up to a CEO of property management, it's people that are taking the time. And how do we find that happy medium? I think we all know working through the pandemic was trying times, but we're 4 years out of that. So how do we kind of get back to what we were doing, adapt to what is new now, with everything virtual, all the AI, and just, really find our place where we're coming into on the property management side, I guess, is where it's the tough part is that. I think I was talking to a couple brokers the other day, and I said, I'm working 60% harder for 60% less profit than I was 5 years ago, like pre-pandemic. Expenses are up, whether, we've all through the United States was affected by property management, insurance, or property claims. We had several hailstorms here. We had a derecho come through Iowa, like a land hurricane came through, millions of dollars of damage. So I own a property where our premiums went up from 20,000 to $60,000 a year, and you're talking $1,000 rents. How do you really make up for that?
So, Tina, if by the way, I totally agree on the people front. In a prior life, I ran a management company here in Los Angeles that I founded, and I was um, I got in trouble. The company got in trouble on a number of occasions because of the people, like people doing stuff they shouldn't be doing, people violating our policies, people just violating basic ethics. And, you know, um, and it was embarrassing at times for me operating that company. If people are so important, you talked about culture. If people are so important, why do we have such a hard time then getting great people? Or do we have problems getting great people? Is it that we have problems recruiting great people and getting great people, or is the training that's required so exhaustive that most SMB, like less than 20,000 units, whatever, can't really pull it off in a way that then deploys well-trained people in the field? Like, what is the source of the people problem?
Yeah, I think it's a catch 22 on that. I was at a conference, and somebody had mentioned that the average manager has 18 logins for, different things to run the property. And I know at our company we just have a couple. We have our compliance platform and we have our property management software. So, we really try to streamline that way. But I think it goes back to you had mentioned the training, and unless you get to that certain unit count, you don't have the money for a trainer. And so you look to what you can within the industry. What are some of the things that they can do online for classes? Is your local apartment association prominent? How many classes are they doing? But I was talking to our uh, director of operations yesterday. We had went to we were talking about different generations on a panel, and I remember, now this is going to be one of those, I walked uphill both ways, but I do remember when I started in leasing 19, and I was helping clean hallways. I was helping, on the weekends or at night, or helping clean apartments. And I had all these different duties. And I think now, you hear that's not my job a lot, but let me get back to that. I think that also on the training front, I was always looking at what could I do to better myself. So I wasn't waiting for somebody to come train me. I was sitting in meetings, and I was as the leasing agent or the assistant manager, and I was listening to the manager and the owner of the property talk, and what were they talking about, and just really like soaking that in, trying to go to different industry events like NAA. The first time I attended that was in 2005, but I really went out and met people from different markets. And so I would say I did some self training on my own because I really wanted to learn the industry, and I wanted to be efficient at it, and I wanted it to be a career. And I think that sometimes we struggle with that. Is it a career? Because it is a high stress job. I mean, you've been there too. There's a lot going on. You have a lot of people coming at you, whether it's residents, vendors, owners. And so on the training, I think it is hard to find that happy medium. And we hear so many times, I wasn't trained, I wasn't trained. But then we go on site to help train, or we have them come in the corporate office to help train, and the attention isn't there. People are on their phones, they're on their computer, that, residents are coming in. So I would just love if there was like a full proof plan for it. But I mean, there really isn't. And so just finding, what works for everybody. And it's tough. It's tough when you can't have that training person.
It's a difficult career for a lot of reasons. One of the things you just mentioned, I think, is one thing that I've said all the time, is that as a property manager, if you're the best property manager there ever was, somebody's probably yelling at you that day, because a good property manager is evicting people on time and getting rid of pets that exceed your breed requirements, like all kinds of things that actually make people angry. And so if you're not getting yelled at by residents for doing your job, then you have investors that have certain demands. Why isn't occupancy up? Why aren't rental rates where we want it to be? Like, you take you very few opportunities for positive feedback in many ways for an industry that doesn't have the budgets to pay extravagant salaries as well. So it's hard to get people, I think, to recruit into this industry. And so when this is what we run into. So, I wear my other hat, which is the CEO of Leonardo 24/7, which is ostensibly software that helps people run their property operations. And what we hear from time to time is, well, we're concerned about having Leo out there because it's going to set expectations that things are going to get done. It's going to set expectations that, there are inspections that need to be done, that sort of thing. And if our people don't do them, like we don't want them to get mad that now we know they don't do stuff. Like, we don't want to hold people to the standards that are actually required to operate our properties, because it is so hard to recruit people into this industry. Does that resonate with you?
It absolutely does. And I think, I'm a user of that, and went through that in my head too. But I think on something like that, though, and I'm an owner of a couple of multifamily properties as well. And I think, from the owner standpoint, the owner of the management company standpoint, and as a landlord, it's not micromanagement, it's risk management for one. Like, we need those inspections done. We need to know if we're coming up on the sprinklers needing inspected, or with the constant turn we have in the industry, that's our constant that we have of what needs done at each property. So we really do live by that. If somebody does leave, because where else are you housing it at? Where, in a paperless world, in a perfect world, you would have it there or on site, and or where you need it. But the fact of the matter is it's not. So then at least we can go in and we can get those. But I think that it's really tough because nobody has time, right? And we live in a society where busy is glorified. And so if you don't have time to complete the report or the inspection, the on-site inspection, then it's get to the next day, which goes to the next day, which goes to the next day. I always use the example of collections. Back when we would have to copy the lease and, the disposition letter and all of that to send to collections, I would go into managers' offices and there would be piles of files. And we aren't trying to collect on them. They haven't been sent to the collection company, but they've been written off on the books. So where's the checks and balances there to make sure that that owner is then going to, be able to at least try to obtain some of that back? So we've put policies into place where until the file is physically at the attorney's office, we do not write it off. So I think that's just, again, because we're not going to make time to do it. So what's the priority of, and is it a priority to get in bad debt collection, or is it a priority to go walk units for people moving in that day? I get it. It's, the priority to walk the move-ins. And so with you had mentioned something about the salaries are tied on the properties. So where can you find efficiencies? Because not all properties can have multiple people in the office. So who do you look to help with some of those? And I think that's where in our industry, just seeing it change through the years, AI has been huge to help with that. The virtual that we can do, the paperless, but there's just some things that aren't going to go away. Move out inspections have to be done. You need to do the move-in inspections. And so really what is going to be coming forth in our industry as well. I think that a lot more of it's going to be virtual. I think a lot more people are going to come off site because we'll be able to do it from the corporate office, for instance, of, some of that posting the rent, sending out notices and things like that. So I don't know. We just had an interesting conversation yesterday, like I was saying, about what is the industry going to do and how is it going to change with AI, but also just with how things are being done, right? Like what are we staffing and for vendors and just all of it put together. It's really, I think it's been a trying couple of years. It's been a heavy couple of years with the changes we've had again with the insurance, real estate taxes, trying to recruit people, salary increases. So where is that give? And on the property management side, as an owner of a management company, I think that we take a lot too because it's just an assumption we're making a lot of money. And as you know, Dean, we are not. A management company is usually to protect assets. And I am an owner in approximately 450 units. And so I want my assets protected because those are long-term investments for me. And after selling the last management company I was a part of, I started this one for that reason.
Yeah. If you're looking to build generational wealth and get your 90-foot yacht to sail the open seas in your retired years, property management companies are probably themselves not the vehicle for that. You talked about, you just mentioned insurance. You've mentioned it a couple times, and I think that's also exacerbated sort of this burden of the things that need to be done on site. Is now there was a day like when I started in the business, we kind of didn't worry about risk. We were like, that's what I have insurance for. Like, if I get sued or if something, you have a flood, whatever, like I have insurance for that. Because of what's happening in the insurance industry, not only are coverages more limited, and are you being penalized in a punitive way for losses that you can't just have a claim and brush it off. A claim has material effects on your NOI, perhaps your whole portfolio's NOI. Like now risk management really matters. And that's like another thing people have to think about and execute that maybe they didn't have on their plate before. You talked about AI, Tina, in your capacity with advisory solutions, for example. What are the table stakes at this point for becoming more efficient and allowing people to focus on the priorities and dispensing or becoming or offboarding some of the less important things, not important things, but things that can be on board that don't need to be done by a property manager. Let's say it that way. Give us a list of some of the things. Like, when you step into an organization, what are you looking for? Like, have you done these 5 things? Because if you're not done these 5 things, you're not being efficient.
Yeah, I think some of it is on that side of it. Definitely, I like to say, what am I best at? Now, I have, again, building a couple management companies. I do know the accounting side of it. I know all the back end of our software, but do you really need your site people doing that? It took a lot for me to take the entering of the payables off of the site managers years ago. Best decision we made. All of that can just be the vendors send it in, it gets loaded. You've got somebody off site that is able to do that. So I think a lot of your accounting type stuff, your rent, can you make it mandatory that your residents either pay online, or we have a great feature where they can go to like a local gas station or Walgreens, CVS, they scan a QR code, and then it is going to go right into their account. So do you make some decisions like that? We also have implemented where we just have a PO box for all bills, all mail goes to if it's not emailed. So that, just to take that off of on-site. I think it's really looking at some of the other things, as in maybe your vendors. So are your vendors serving you best? Are they helping you save time? Are they being proactive? Tell you things that they see? And then really getting your team members to think with owner's eyes. I know sometimes I think it's just so many years in the business, but I saw a light on it one of my properties as I was driving by the interstate during the day, and I thought, I'm just going to wait and see how long till that gets fixed. And it took me a lot. It took me a lot, Dean Cunningham, but it was 9 months later, and I finally said, fix the light. Because I know you're busy, but can you at least stop? We could do everything through our phones. There's an app for everything. So just, if you don't have time to change it, put in a work order. But there are 3 team members at that property where it went on for 9 months. So just examples like that, really to look at and dial into. That's more of your on-site. So I guess that's not giving it to somebody else, but if with even the dispositions, any admin work, we do vend all of that out, or we have a third party company that helps with that, all of our auditing, um, reviewing the files. I think it's really important to make sure that everything is correct on those. So any of that you can have somebody else looking at. And what I've found a lot of efficiency in is assigning those tasks company wide to one person. So you've got one person that does all the move outs. So we can make sure, are we charging all the fees that we can? That would be another big one that comes to mind. I just want to mention before I forget, back on the vendors, on the never have I ever in this industry topic, I had a vendor that submitted a bid to do complete rehab on two units. These are down to the studs. The drywall was out. We had water damage. They didn't get put back online right away. So they've been sitting for a while. Submit the bids. The manager calls me and says, this just isn't right. So I go over, and this vendor has went to the local restore and bought cabinets to piece together to put into the unit. Where the doors had water damage on them a couple inches up, they simply took a saw, sawed it off, and so the door was high water. And I know I'm kind of taking a turn on this, but this is where, like, your vendors to do a great job. Like, never has anybody ever put used appliances. So the bid had appliances, $3,500, and they were used. And I just, at that moment, I just like took a deep breath. Like, how is this happening? Like, this is insane to me. This is absolutely crazy that they had went to, like I said, they went to the restore, but they also got all the light fixtures there. So everything was used. And then when we called them back, it was like, yeah, you should know by the pricing. I'm like, no, you shouldn't. And so if you don't have, a manager or maintenance or somebody who's checking up on that. It's just then you've got time from your corporate, so it takes away from here and there. And yeah, just crazy things in the industry right now. Like I said, 60% more time for 60% less.
I think you just introduced a topic for a brand new episode, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about vendors and managing vendors. It reminds me of this TikTok I see from time to time where people are shoving ramen into the holes of of drywall holes and just scrapping over the ramen, sanding down the ramen. Like it's this is what I've seen over the years that constitutes maintenance. It's frightening. It's frightening. More tales from the dark side. Um, well, so AI to the rescue in some instances for sure. I'm a little bit in love with the idea of what's happening now with AI reaching out and doing collection calls, that sort of thing. It makes a lot of sense to me. There's a couple of vendors that are providing that service. Um, I yeah.
Oh, I was just going to mention when I said we kind of centralize some of the stuff. We have somebody send out all of our renewals too. So we have one for the whole company, approve the rate. I've got somebody that just sends them all out and then sets up the constant reminders. So it takes that off of the on-site staff as well. So, but it doesn't seem like, in my opinion, it's freeing up time for our managers. So that's where I'm trying to problem solve. Like, what can we do in that area?
Why is it not freeing up time, do you think?
I think it's because with the time that we're allotted, we're going to find stuff to fill it, right? There's something to do. And I think that at the end of the day, you have to be, I got done what I could today and now I'm walking away, because I think we could all, work all night. There's stuff to do. But it's really, I guess, expectations and prioritizing. Maybe the on-site team, kind of back to the training, I guess, the on-site team thinks that there's an expectation for this, and we're over here like, this is the expectation. I don't know. It's tough, but I do think people are going to fill the time with how they can.
Well, we don't treat this podcast as a commercial for Leonardo, but it is one of the things we built in early on to Leo, was this notion that maybe you can't get to everything all the time. You've got to be able to prioritize. You got to add different levels of importance to different tasks and be able to queue up the things you can't get to, and then just let them drop off if you can't get to them. If they're not that important and they can drop off, let them. But make sure you're laser focused on the stuff that really matters, preserves asset value, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we do have those conversations as well. Like, the goals at every property isn't the same either. Is it a long-term hold? Is it a short-term hold? Are we, replacing it, whatever the case may be. So I think it's just having that conversation. But yeah, you do have to let go of some of it. I definitely agree.
Um, I always enjoy talking to you, Tina. We're already going longer than we try to have these. Is there any, out of what we've talked about today and discussed, give us one nugget, Tina, like the thing that will make operations instantly better for you tomorrow if you're swimming in too many things to do.
I, without a doubt, are you using the resources that you have? Are you using and implementing, whether it's different, types of software that your company utilizes, whether it's just a simple thing like uploading something from your phone onto your property management software or in your compliance software? Like, are you utilizing the things you have? Because so many times I consult with other management companies, or I go on site and it's like, well, this is the way you do this. Well, I know, but I just like to do it this way. To do it our own way, but I assure you, I promise you, if you just try it this way, it will save you time. And I think that as owners, as supervisors, whether you're, a manager or a leader, a regional, in that type of position, I always just like to ask people or say to people, sit down with them, show me how you're doing it. because I guarantee I can help you find efficiencies in it. One of the things with our software, I'll go through and figure out, by not moving your hands from the keyboard to the mouse and clicks by saving, I figured out for a management company how they could save a couple $1,000s a year because they aren't doing that thing. So utilize your resources. And then I just want to add to that as well. If you have a network in the property management industry, if something feels like it's taking too long, ask them how they do it and be open to the answer.
Yeah, this is that one nice thing about the industry is nobody really acts like competitors. Nobody's like jealously hoarding like the best way to do things. Everybody's anxious to share great ways they found to do things. So that's a great piece of advice. I've often sort of mused out loud, like I wish there was sort of like an exchange where you can have some authorities that are like, look, we've tried everything and here's the best way to do things. Like the industry could really benefit from something like that. And something like that has not really evolved quite yet, but yeah, go to trade show events, go to your local NAA, state, apartment association, build those relationships and ask for help. I love that. Well, we'll have to reschedule our vendor call for another time, Tina, because that's at least another show in and of itself.
Totally. I want to get together a bunch of industry professionals and never in the industry have I ever until now. So.
And bring the receipts, bring photos. We'll share it all. We'll post it here. All right. Well, Professor Smothers, thank you so much. If people want to get a hold of you and they're interested in some of this knowledge and utilizing you in this fractional way where you can step in and help them improve their operations, how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, look, LinkedIn, Tina Smothers, or email tina@advisory-solutions.com, and would be more than happy to help if you do need services or just want to run something by. I love to chat property management. It's what fuels me, and I love to hear what other people are doing.
Absolutely. I've seen that firsthand. So I appreciate you offering that to the folks. Thanks for coming on today, Tina. It's great to see you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us at this week's episode of the Apartment Academy podcast. The Apartment Academy is a production of Leonardo 24/7, the industry's leader in multifamily operations and maintenance software. At Apartment Academy, we realize the hard work that goes into property management and the stress that comes along with it. Leonardo 24/7 takes the guesswork out of your team's day-to-day by providing customized daily guidance on tasks that need to be done, guaranteeing consistent operations across your entire portfolio. To learn more, visit www.leonardo24